This is a smuggling boat, currently traveling in waters outside of Shenzhen, but it's not smuggling any drugs or people. In the back of it, there's a new Mercedes-Benz. A couple of hours ago, this car was parked outside a businessman's home. Now it's on its way to another, richer Chinese businessman's home. During the 80s and 90s, this was a huge problem. A car in Hong Kong was stolen every 5 hours. Most of them ended up in China. It for real took like 7 hours to render that garbage. I don't know how Mustard and Fern does it. Anyway, buying a high-end car is expensive everywhere, but in China it's almost impossible. The government imposes extreme taxes on imported luxury vehicles, sometimes doubling or even tripling their price. China levies a combination of high import duties, a 25% tariff, VAT and a luxury consumption tax that scales with engine size. In other words, the more powerful the car, the more you pay. In the 80s and 90s, when China really focused on growing their own car industry, the import taxes of used vehicles was as high as 80%. For those who can afford these vehicles, but not the taxes, smuggling became a tempting alternative. So much so that around a third of all used cars sold in 97 was illegally imported. But getting from Hong Kong to China is no easy feat. They are pretty close to each other, but there's also a lot of traffic and surveillance. So the first method smugglers used was so-called boats. I have no idea what it means. I think it's like airplane or flying or something like that. It comes from the boats planing when they travel. And to get up to those speeds with a car on board, they had to use a lot of power, with some boats having 5 or even 7 engines. Wait, how much horsepower is that? 250 times 7, holy shit, that's 1750 horsepower. The speed that thing was going must have shaken the cars to pieces, and maybe that's why they changed up their tactic. In the late 90s, they started seeing boats like this. This is the picture that got me started on this rabbit hole, and it's been very hard to find any info on it, as I don't speak Mandarin very well. If you think things like these are as interesting as I do, please consider subscribing. The boat was seized in 2003. It was made out of steel and was built to carry 2 cars. It had a lift to get them in and out, and I know, it might look like a slow tank, but this had 6 200 horsepower engines that could get the boat up to 50 knots. That's like 90 kilometers an hour. The boat was seized in Panyu and was cut in half to show off in a national anti-smuggling achievement exhibition. I don't know if it worked. Seeing that would just get me hyped. It didn't seem to deter the smugglers either, because it's still going on, just in new ways. A common one is to legally purchase cars in places like Hong Kong or Macau, register them there and then bring them into China under temporary permits. Although these permits are not intended to be permanent, people manipulate loopholes to keep their vehicles indefinitely, without paying the full import duties. Another common tactic involves misrepresenting a car's value. Smugglers bribe custom officials to forge paperwork to claim that a $300,000 Ferrari is worth only $50,000. This slashes import taxes, though if caught, the consequences include severe penalties, car seizure and hefty fines. You could also import all the pieces separately as spare parts and then reassemble the vehicle in secret garages, as individual parts are much harder for custom officials to track. But honestly, I don't know if I want my Ferrari assembled in China. In recent times, another modern method has emerged. Buying cars in the US and Canada and shipping them to China in containers. Smugglers use fake buyers or straw purchasers to legally acquire vehicles under different names, then load them into containers disguised as other goods. Once the containers reach Chinese ports, corrupt officials or underground networks ensure that the cars slip into the market without incurring the exorbitant import fees. It has become a problem for US dealerships that straw buyers lease a new car and pay a down payment, then after a week or so ship them to China. The dealership will first notice when the leasing payments stop coming in, and by that point it's too late. BMW has even started hiring private investigators to track down smuggled vehicles and try to recover them before they are loaded onto a ship. And they'll try to remotely deactivate the car software, but that only works if the car has internet. But it's not just about the latest models. There's also a growing fascination with JDM cars. As China's economy has grown, so too has the amount of collectors and car guys. Unfortunately for enthusiasts, strict regulations ban the import of vehicles older than 20 years. This effectively makes all the legendary JDMs banned. The only legal things would be like a last year NSX or a late blah-buy. This has of course led to a thriving black market for JDM classics. Smugglers employ the same tactics: fake paperwork, container shipping, even disassembling cars into parts. While some collectors pay steep prices for legally imported or locally produced models, many turn to the underground market, even though you probably can't drive any of them on the street, because old cars have to pass the same emission tests as new cars. It's a well-known fact that North Korea gets most of its goods from China, but for a time one lucrative trade flowed in the opposite direction. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, North Korean smugglers made fortunes sneaking used cars into China. During the freezing winter months, cars were driven across the solid ice of the Yalu and Tumen rivers. In warmer seasons, makeshift pontoons or even waterproof iron boxes were used to float the vehicles across. North Korea's unique position as a gateway allowed traders to bring in Japanese vehicles legally, pay minimal duties and then smuggle them into China for a massive profit. With the right bribes and connections, these cars bypassed inspections, entering China's black market where they could sell for double or triple the original price. And it wasn't just North Koreans benefiting. Chinese buyers and middlemen played crucial roles in using this backdoor route to circumvent China's strict laws. But China lowering their import duties and everyone increasing their tariffs on North Korea has effectively closed this gate. High taxes wasn't really a bad play for China. You can't deny that it achieved what they wanted. It didn't only fuel the underground trade, it also influenced China's domestic car market. With luxury vehicles serving as a symbol of status and wealth, domestic automakers saw an opportunity. Brands like NIO, Hongqi and BYD aggressively developed their own high-end models, offering luxury features at a fraction of the cost of imported cars. Moreover, as China's economy has surged over the past few decades, a burgeoning middle class has driven up demand for not just modern luxury, but innovation as well. Electric vehicles in particular have exploded in popularity as China invests heavily in EVs, positioning its brand as a serious competitor on the global stage. If you want to discuss these things with me directly, I live stream on Twitch now and then. I recently tried to go around the Nordschleife with just voice commands. Right. Brake. Gear up. Right. There's too many things to do at once. If you found yourself watching a few of my videos, please consider subscribing.